So one of our goals this year is to build a solar power system to power a portion of our house, maybe even a portion of our pole barn as well. We're not going to go totally off grid. We're not going to power the whole house and everything with solar. We just want to do a portion of it. We want to do the critical things like our fridges, our freezers. We want to do our lights. We want to do all the things that are the necessities, basically. Now, to do that, since we're not going to do our whole home, the first thing we need to do is we actually need to determine how much power all those things use. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install an energy monitor inside of our breaker panel. So I bought this off of Amazon. This is an Emporia View, and this is an energy monitor that monitors the total power coming into your house, and it can monitor 16 circuits in your breaker panel. So we're going to put these on the circuits that we plan to go solar with, and then this can basically tell us our total power usage so that we can actually size our system properly. So once we have this installed, we can also use it to identify things that are inefficient and using way too much power, or things we've left on that's using way too much power. So we can use it to identify ways to lower our power usage. And then we also got some smart devices we're going to install today to try to automate a few things. But let's go ahead, break open this panel, and start getting this installed. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn off our main breaker. And I got some lights set up in here temporarily, plus we got some sunlight, so at least we can see. Then we're going to go ahead and take the panel cover off. So this here is the energy monitor. You can see it's not very big. Has several connections on here to be able to monitor all the circuits. And then this is basically going to hide inside of the panel, probably sitting in the bottom when we're done. So these here go on the main wires on your panel to monitor the total energy. And the cool thing about these is they actually just flip open, and you just close them around the wire. So you don't have to unwire anything in the panel. And then there's clearly marked on here, breaker this direction. So you got to put them in the right direction. So basically this is just going to fit on top of here, this wire, and clip over it. That's it. So even though we turn the main breaker off, there's still electricity underneath these protective covers. So you just got to be careful. And we're just going to reach up here with the second one and clip it around the wire. And there you go. That's the main power monitors. So these larger ones can measure up to 200 amps worth of current, and there is 16 of these smaller ones. And these can actually measure 50 amps worth of current, and that will probably cover most of the breakers in your panel. And they work the same way. You just open them up, you put them over the wire, and then close them up around the wire. They'll monitor the power being used on that circuit. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to install all 16 of these on the circuits that we want to measure. So I don't know whether these came with zip ties or not, but you're definitely going to want to zip tie all these up so that it doesn't look like a rat's nest when you're done. So you just have to remember when you're putting these on here that the arrow's got to point toward the breaker. This one's the mechanical room with the freezers. Definitely want that one. Now we'll probably have to stagger these back and forth as we go down this panel. So now I'm going to plug each one of these into the monitor, and they're numbered on the back. I'm just going to keep track of which one of these hooks to which port on the monitor. So your two main lines coming in, they hook on the top of the monitor right here. One hooks to A and one hooks to B. If I can stop dropping it. There we go. So the next thing to hook up is the Wi-Fi antenna. You can't leave it inside of the metal box or it won't get good signal. This actually has to be outside the box. It's made to fit in one of the knockouts on the side of your breaker panel. So we're going to pop one of these 1/2-inch knockouts out, and we're going to pop it in there, and the antenna will just be right here on the side of the panel. So I think I'm just going to use this knockout right there. So now we'll just go ahead and put the antenna in the hole, and there we go. And then the antenna just threads onto the top of the monitor. So the next thing is the power wiring, and this is really the only wiring that you have to land in the panel. Now on the monitor, it just plugs in the bottom. But in the United States, there's 4 wires here. So in the United States, you would use red and black for power. And each one of these goes to a different phase in your panel because there's 2 different phases in here. So they want you to land them on breakers right next to each other because the way your breaker panel is this is phase 1, phase 2, phase 1, phase 2. It just alternates as it goes down. So they want these right next to each other, not the same breaker. So I'm just going to land it right here on this 2-pole breaker to power it up. That's just my surge protector, and that will be a good one to scab power off of. And then the white and the blue, they're going to land on my neutral bar. Once I get to the store, I can buy its own breaker. I've got a spot for a double pole breaker here, and I can make its own breaker for it so it's not sharing with another. Probably going to need like 100 pack of zip ties to be able to make this look halfway decent. Well, I've tried to zip tie this up as best as possible, and hopefully we can get this tucked in the bottom of the panel. Now these do want to come unplugged, so you got to make sure that they all, as you're moving this around, they may want to unplug, so you just got to make sure they're all plugged in. Well, that's definitely a mess of wires to have to try to hide inside of this panel, but once the cover's on, you'll never see it again. So we'll go ahead, we'll get this on there, and then we can power this up and try it out, see how it works. So I went ahead and I've got the app uploaded to my phone. I've got everything set up so when you look at it, you can see my total power usage for the house, and then you can see all the circuits that we're monitoring. Right now, the loft outlets are actually pulling the most power, and that's where my computer is sitting. So my computer is actually pulling the most power right now. So I also ended up buying the Emporia smart outlets. So you can turn these on and off from your phone, but they also monitor power as well. And I've got these on 3 different things. So you can see I've got my bedroom fan on here because I'm curious. I run a fan at night, so I'm curious how much power that uses as we run a fan while we sleep. And then I also have the mechanical room broke down with 2 of these to show each one of our freezers in the basement, so I can see the power each one of them pulls. One of the freezers is way older than the other one. It's actually like, I think my parents bought it when I was about 10 years old, something like that. So it's like a 35-year-old freezer. So I'm really curious how well those 2 freezers compare. One that's like probably a year or 2 old compared to a 35-year-old freezer. And that's all on here where we can monitor it. Now this has to be done over time. So we're going to let this sit and go for a few days, and then we can come up with a better average of what we actually use on these circuits. So the next thing I want to do is try to minimize a little bit of our power usage. As you can see, our lights are on outside our house. And the reason that is because we turn them on at night. We want it to light up around our house. It kind of keeps the foxes and coyotes away from our ducks out here. It also kind of keeps the deer away from the garden. But we like having it lit up out here at night. So we turn them on. We forget to turn them back off. So that's why they're always on. And the right thing would have been to buy the dusk till dawn lights that have a sensor in them so that they just come on and off when it gets dark. But that would be fairly expensive to do that now. I'd have to buy like 10 lights around my house and replace all the lights. So I'm not going to do that. So what I ended up buying is a smart light switch instead. So this hooks to the Wi-Fi, so you can operate it with your phone, but you can also program a schedule in it so that it can turn on and off at certain times. And it also has sunrise and sunset, and it will adjust those for what time of the year it is. So it basically has a dusk till dawn feature built into it. So I turned off the breakers for all these light switches, and I can verify that none of them come on and off. So go ahead and take the light switch cover off. So this light switch is the porch lights on the front of the house. So that light switch had 3 wires, one with power, one going to the light, and the ground. So this smart switch actually has 4 wires. That's the only thing different about it. You got your green for ground, you got your 2 black wires for your line and load, and then you have a neutral. So that's the only thing different about this. So the only thing tricky is you have to find a neutral inside of your box to be able to hook this to. If you don't have a neutral inside of there, this isn't going to work. And the other thing about these is this little plastic plate pops off of there, and you feel like you're going to break it trying to get it off. and now it's just looks more like a light switch. All right, I've got my neutral pulled out, so the switch is going to hook to that with the white wire, and then the other wires are going to hook up over here just like the other light switch. All right, we've got our smart switch wired up. We just got to get everything back inside. I'm just going to go ahead and put a little electrical tape around these power connections. Just kind of a added precaution. All right, we can go ahead and turn the power back on and get this programmed. So I've got the app on my phone and I've added the smart switch back here. I've got it on the Wi-Fi network now. So now from my phone screen, I can actually turn it on and off. But what we want to do is we want to go down to schedule, and this is where we can program it to turn on and off automatically. So we're going to add something to the schedule. We're going to tell it to turn off power, and we're going to pick sunrise. So at sunrise, it'll turn off power all 7 days of the week. Save that. We'll add another item to the schedule. We're going to tell it to turn on power at sunset. Well, did I just do that backwards? I may have done it backwards. And I think I did it right. But anyway, at sunset, it's going to turn on power all 7 days of the week, and then we'll save that. Yep, I got it right. So now it says turns off at sunrise, turns on at sunset. And that's all you got to do. You don't have to program an on and an off. You can just program a bunch of offs. So I could say every night after I go to bed, turn this off. Every day when I go to work, turn this off. I don't have to automatically turn anything on. You could actually just program this to just automatically turn things off at certain times. So, and that would definitely help you save a little bit of power. So I went ahead and added a couple more smart switches for some outside lights. You can see when they're off, there's actually a circle for you to find them in the dark. And these are just momentary. You just turn them on and off with the push of a button. So we're going to go ahead and we're done here. Got these all programmed. I just need to get these covered up. So I've got a total of 3 smart switches now. They're all on my Wi-Fi. They're all programmed. I can turn them on and off remotely, but they are all on a schedule. I think that was a fairly cheap solution to my lighting problem. So I won't forget to turn them off ever again. They're going to turn on themselves on and off, and a lot cheaper than buying all new dusk till dawn light fixtures. So I know this isn't really for everybody. You got to be comfortable wiring up a light switch. Some people wouldn't want to attempt that, but I think in the end these are going to pay for themselves with all the energy that they save. And then if you're trying to make your own power with solar, any little energy savings you can do is just going to put you that much ahead when you're trying to make your own power. So it's been 5 days now since we got the power monitor all set up. So we got 5 days worth of data in here. So now we can start going back and reviewing that. We can start seeing our daily averages. We can see how much it used basically every hour, every minute. You've got graphs now. So this is our outside porch lights. And you can see that the lights come on and use power every night, and then they turn back off during the day. And you can see that power usage. And you could do that for any of the circuits that we're monitoring. So we could monitor the fireplace blower, we could monitor the fridge or the freezers. And it's interesting to see all of that data. But the thing that really got me is when I looked at this and you start going back and seeing your daily totals, it got me. I was surprised to see the ones that were the most used. They were the highest power usage. I wouldn't have guessed it would have been those. And then some of the ones that were the lowest, I would have thought they would have used a lot more power. So I did find a lot of this data surprising. So out of those 16 circuits, the one that used the most power was our living room lighting circuit, and it has these 2 ceiling fans on there. Now the lights, of course, they're only on and when we're home and in the living room, but those ceiling fans run all the time, 24/7, those ceiling fans are running, and that's what draws the most power. Ended up being just over 4 kilowatt hours. 10% of our total use in our house was from those 2 ceiling fans, and I found that very surprising. So our next highest power usage was our mechanical room where we have our freezers. And if you remember, I put each one of these on a different plug-in to monitor them separately. And if I scroll down here, you can see this one uses 1.9 kilowatt hours. This was using about 1.1 kilowatt hours. So this uses like 50% or more power to keep this freezer going. So it's definitely inefficient. Like I said, that has been around since I was a kid. So what I've decided to do, I went out into the pole barn. We got a freezer out there that is basically empty. So we're going to take the food out of here. We're going to move it into that freezer. And then we're going to turn this one off. And we're actually going to move it out of here. And what that's going to allow me to do is I'm going to be able to take this freezer. I'm going to move it this direction. I'm going to free up some wall space here because this is where some of our power stuff's going to go for our solar power. So we're going to have another critical loads panel here and a transfer switch. So that's going to give us some wall space. At the same time, we're going to lower our power usage by moving that into another freezer. So our third highest power usage was actually our bedroom. And that's just from running fans at night while we sleep, because we run 2 fans every night. And then the fourth one kind of surprised me. It was actually the loft area, which is my office. And that's basically my computer. So I go up there and I edit, probably I'm on it 4 hours a night on the computer. But it used quite a bit of power even when I wasn't using it. While it was technically asleep, it was still drawing quite a bit of power. And I found that it's actually better just to shut the whole thing down. And it's like one of those phantom power draws you don't realize, but it's sitting there using quite a bit of power when you're not even using it. So the thing that used the least amount of power was our on-demand propane hot water heater. Now, propane is what it does burn to heat the water, but it does have an igniter in here, and it does have a blower motor for the combustion air. So it uses electricity. It's not much, it just plugs into a 120 volt outlet, but this ended up, it's kind of surprising me, but this ended up being our lowest. It only used 0.035 kilowatt hours in a day. That was its average use in a day. Extremely efficient. So if you're going to go solar, I think one of these propane or natural gas on-demand hot water heaters is definitely going to be the way you want to go. You're not going to hardly use any electricity running one of those. So our next lowest load ended up being our microwave. Now a lot of times you think of these that there's a lot of watts, right? These are like 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 watts in a microwave. That's a lot of energy, but it's a short duration. You're only going to do it for like 1 minute, 3 minutes to be able to heat something up. So it's a lot of watts, but it's real short, right? And this only pretty much gets used for us around supper time, and ended up being one of our lowest items on our list. So I think in the end, this is just probably more efficient to be able to heat food up with this than it would be an air fryer or an Instapot or slow cooker. I think the microwave in the end will use less energy. So our average daily power usage for those 16 circuits came out to 22 kilowatt hours a day, which is actually a little bit more than half the power we use in the entire house. But that freezer downstairs, we are going to move that food to a different freezer. We're going to get that unplugged. So that's going to go down to about 20 kilowatt hours a day on average. So that's what we're going to need to shoot for when we build our solar power system, right? We need to shoot for something that produces 20 kilowatt hours a day. Now, this is winter time. In the summertime, we actually will probably use more power in the summertime. But as long as we size everything for the winter time, which is when we have the least amount of sun, we will produce a lot more in the summertime. So I think we're fine basing everything off of these wintertime numbers. And so now at least we know what our power requirements are. So now we can finally get into starting to size our system, how many solar panels, how big of inverters, how many batteries we need. There's a few things there that we need to do, but at least we know how much power we need. And we got the energy monitor. The more data we collect, the more we're going to understand. And I think the more we're going to become efficient, because we're going to know what things we need to turn off, what things are drawing too much power. I think we've already learned quite a few things on how to actually lower our power usage. I didn't try to really do any of those things because I wanted to get kind of a baseline, so now I can take the things that I've learned from the app, from the energy use, and we can start applying those things, and we could probably actually get that energy use down a little bit lower. So this is the first video in a series of trying to go solar this year, right? So now we can go ahead, we can start purchasing the rest of our solar panels. We're going to be putting a solar array up on the pole barn roof, and getting that installed. It's going to have a rapid shutdown system. So if a firefighter comes, they can shut those solar panels down. So there's going to be quite a few things that's going to end up being installed. It's all going to be DIY. We're going to be doing it all ourselves. And as we slowly try to produce what appears to be close to half our power off of solar, hopefully by the end of the year. But I think that's going to be it for this video, guys. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.